Hey Archer nurses, today we have a short lecture for you on the EKG changes specific to electrolyte abnormalities. I'm going to start off with potassium. That's certainly the most infamous for changing the EKG that you see. Remember, potassium is an important component of depolarization, actually sending that electrical activity through the heart. So high or low levels of potassium, no good for our EKG. Let's talk first about what high potassium does, hyperkalemia. The first thing you can expect to see is a wide, flat P wave. Remember, the P wave represents atrial depolarization, the atria contracting and sending that blood to the ventricles. So instead of a short and kind of peaked P wave, we'll see it to be wide and flat. That also means that the interval from the beginning of the P all the way to that R is going to be long, a prolonged PR interval. Next, we see a widened QRS interval. So remember that your QRS should be less than 0.12. This QRX complex is going to be too wide. And the area between the S and the T will be depressed. This segment connecting the big QRS to the T wave, it's going to be depressed. Lastly, the most important finding of hyperkalemia in an EKG is your tall peaked T wave. This T wave, representing ventricular repolarization, is usually pretty shallow and rounded, and in hyperkalemia, it's going to be tall and peaked. Really important to notice if any of these EKG changes occur because they are kind of like a warning sign. They by themselves might not really harm your client. They're probably still going to have a pulse and be perfusing okay. But it can lead into heart block, ventricular fibrillation, and eventually cause cardiac arrest leading to asystole. So if I notice any of these EKG changes, I want to check my client's potassium level and address any hyperkalemia very quickly. Next, let's look at a low potassium level. Hypokalemia causes different EKG changes. A slightly prolonged PR interval and a slightly peaked P wave. So in hyperkalemia, we saw a wide flat P wave, and it's exactly the opposite in hypokalemia, a peaked P wave. We also see that ST depression. Instead of a tall peaked T wave, though, we see a shallow T wave. Again, the opposite of hyperkalemia. And lastly, the most prominent hypokalemia finding on your EKG is a prominent U wave. The U wave actually comes after the T wave, not something that we usually see on EKG. When we see a prominent U wave after that T, that is an indication of hypokalemia. So let's compare here. In hypokalemia, we see that prominent U wave. In hyperkalemia, we see that tall peaked T wave. Those are the most important findings for potassium in your EKG. Next, let's talk about magnesium. All right, I know this one doesn't get all of the hype that potassium does, but it's still so important to the electrical activity of the heart. So again, high or low magnesium levels can cause differences in your EKG. The first thing you'll see with a high magnesium or that hypermagnesemia is a wide flat P wave and prolonged PR interval. All right. You'll also see a widening QRS complex, some ST depression, and then a tall T wave. This should sound really familiar to you. We talked about a lot of these changes with hyperkalemia. You're going to see a very similar EKG in the case of a client with high potassium and a client with high magnesium. So the most common question I get is, well, Morgan, how in the world can I tell this apart? There is a key word with your client who has high potassium. It's that tall, peaked T wave, all right? When we look at that T wave over here on the right, it's going to be peaked, kind of pointy and tipped at the end. Versus in hypermagnesemia, that's not our typical description. We just talk about a tall T wave. To be honest with you, this is really hard. In real life, if I start to see these EKG changes, I want to check my client's electrolytes to really figure out what's going on. I want to look at their potassium and their magnesium. So clinically, we're going to see some similarities here. Now, let's look at hypomagnesemia. Too low of a magnesium level, again, causes a prolonged PR interval, and it also causes a lengthened QT interval. All right, that's the first time we've seen that. The QT interval here is how long it takes from that big QRS complex all the way to the beginning of the T wave, that QT interval. That's usually pretty short. When we have a long QT interval, it places our client at risk for severe dysrhythmias such as ventricular tachycardia. There's a specific type of ventricular tachycardia that our clients with hypomagnesemia are at risk for. We'll look at it momentarily. It's something called torsades. So to compare high and low magnesium first, with high magnesium, remember you're going to see things similar to high potassium. Wide flat P, prolonged PR, wide QRS, and that tall T wave. Remember, it's not going to be described as peaked. If you hear tall peaked T wave, you better be thinking hyperkalemia. With hypomagnesemia, we have very different findings. That long PR and, importantly, that long QT. Whenever we have a long QT interval, I'm worried about the possibility of my client going into VTAC. And with hypomagnesemia, remember, I'm specifically worried about this type of VTAC called torsades. Torsades or Torsades de Pointes is a polymorphic VTAC, which means that those big, wide, bizarre QRS complexes that we see, they're coming in varying heights. Here, they're really short, they're a little taller, then they get short again, and then they get really tall. So they're polymorphic. They're not just one height. And because they're coming kind of short and then medium and then tall and then short again, it kind of gives the appearance of twisting on a point. And that's where it gets that name. Torsades de Pointes means twisting on a point. So if you see this particular type of EKG, you know you're dealing with a type of VTAC and that it is likely caused by hypomagnesemia. If we see this torsades, one of our first interventions for that client is going to be to give them some magnesium, since we know torsades can be caused by that hypomagnesemia. All right, last but not least, what does calcium do to the EKG? It's primarily going to affect that QT interval. Once again, that's that Q from the QRS complex all the way to the T wave. With too much calcium, that hypercalcemia, the QT interval gets shortened. And that puts the client at risk for bradycardia and going into ventricular fibrillation. If our clients don't have enough calcium, however, with hypocalcemia, exactly the opposite happens. The QT interval lengthens. And with a prolonged QT, we are worried that the client could go into VTAC. So, comparing hypo and hypercalcemia, low calcium, we get that long QT, we're worried they could go into VTAC. And high calcium, we get that short QT. I'm going to be more worried about bradycardia and potentially going into VFib. All right, nice work, Archer nurses. That's all I have for you on your EKG changes that occur with electrolyte abnormality. Here is a quick recap of the top points you need to remember for your NCLEX. First, in hypokalemia, we see a prominent U wave. In hyperkalemia, we see a tall peaked T wave. In Hypomagnesemia, we have a long PR, a long QT, and there's the chance that my client could go into torsades. In Hypermagnesemia, we see some really similar EKG changes to Hyperkalemia. A wide flat P, a prolonged PR, a wide QRS, and a tall T wave. It's important to note it's not a tall peaked T wave, and if you see that, you're dealing with high potassium. Lastly, calcium affects the QT interval. Low calcium produces a long QT, and high calcium produces a short QT. If this lecture was helpful for you, we've got plenty more where that came from. Head over to archerreview.com and subscribe to one of our many affordable packages to study for nursing school, the NCLEX, and beyond. We'll see you there, future nurses.